Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to mismapasion, YouTube's premium channel for all things women's football. And for every important and pivotal step that the women's game takes in the right direction, two gigantic leaps backwards are taken by those in high authority who essentially masquerade as wolves in sheep's clothing. Because just about 10 months ago, from the time of this recording, in April 2023, Switzerland were awarded with the rights to host the 2025 UEFA Women's Euros. And now, fast forward to news that broke yesterday, again at the time of recording, just hours before the AFCON final, that the Swiss federal government has drastically cut funding for the tournament to just 4 million Swiss francs or 4.2 million euros. This inappropriate and insufficient funding for the upcoming women's tournament is outrageous, but not exactly for what you may think. So, we need to track back a little bit to understand exactly why it is so outrageous that the Euros are getting such minimal funding. Now, major sporting events of any kind, sporting or otherwise, are a big deal for the country and cities that host them because they are bona fide financial steroids for the nation's economy in so many different sectors due to the influx of foreigners who have traveled far and wide to witness the event in question with their own two eyes. Obvious things like tourism are boosted from fully booked hotel rooms to cultural tours of cities that are taken in between event days, etc. etc. And more often than not, it is a once in a lifetime opportunity for the host to put themselves on the global tourism map for the tourists visiting now and the prospective tourists who will be more enticed to visit that place in the future. And even though it is a first world nation, Switzerland also stands to benefit from the things that I've mentioned so far, because which country would honestly say no to such economic benefits? And at first, it seemed that the Swiss understood this as well, because in the aftermath of being granted the hosting rights, the organizers began to tout their ambitions of wanting to sell out stadiums, boosting international appeal, and making their edition of the Euros the most viewed, most visited, and most exciting women's Euros in women's football history in order to create a benchmark for women's sporting events. Their words, not mine. You would think that with such a big talk, the Swiss bodies at the helm of organizing the Euros were all united behind the same unilateral vision. But as the old saying goes, actions speak louder than words. And the actions so far have been nothing if not disappointing. For starters, let's just address the huge elephant in the room and unanimously agree to just set aside 4 million euros is really just crass. If this were a localized event that was situated in just one or two cities, then it's fine. But this is a major continental tournament that is going to be taking place across 8 different prospective cities and play host to many people and teams of varying nationalities and ethnicities. Needless to say, a lot of funding is required in order to boost the already existing infrastructures available in order to accommodate for the influx of travelers, and quite frankly, it doesn't matter how rich you are as a nation, but 4 million just isn't going to cut it. What really grinds my gears about this particular issue is not just the measly amount being proposed by the federal government, but it's the fact that they had initially touted an investment of 50 million francs or 15.2 million euros, which just raises more questions and concerns about what was so horrible or revealing that the government decided to drastically cut its funding from the Euros. I personally can't think of a significant or plausible reason that could justify the reduction of funding in this case, because from a pure business perspective, you would be foolish to not want to be all in on such a major event. The days of women's football events being risky ventures for countries to invest in are long gone. Recent tournaments like the World Cup, WAFCON, Euro 22, and so many more have been proven moneymakers and head turners as spectators who watch in person and behind the screen tuned in their literal hundreds of millions to cheer on their favorite teams. These kinds of events are proven, and whilst they may not generate the same amount of business and revenue financially as their male counterparts, it is still a profitable venture for all involved. Even looking away from the business aspect, in the absence of the adequate funding from the federal government, the host cities are now also at risk of being affected. Despite the fact that they have budgeted their own money towards developing and improving infrastructures for the upcoming tournament, the absence of the government's financial support will heavily strain the likes of Zurich and Basel because they will be unable to effectively deal with the influx of tourists, which can lead to a major communal issue like limited supplies of electricity and water, heavy traffic congestion, which can affect the lives of employed citizens and local students, and even a shortage in supplies of food and other important amenities that are required on a daily basis, and will ultimately result in some cities having to withdraw their participation from the tournament, which ultimately just makes the burden even heavier for those that decide to remain. To put more focus back on the football though, undoubtedly the biggest losers of this entire situation are the women, young and old, who are within or considering to be a part of the Swiss footballing system. Whilst the nations competing are undoubtedly going to be affected by this, also especially from the standpoint of having the image of women's football be dragged through the mud like this, the local Swiss footballers are essentially being told by the government to find something else to do with their time and aspirations in being professional footballers, because they are not currently willing to pump in the necessary funding to help them achieve their dreams. Since 2021, the Swiss FA have put together a strategy to help increase the number of licensed players in Switzerland by 2025, with the Euros being seen as a significant booster to help them complete this objective. But with everything that has just gone down recently, it will be miraculous if the numbers continue to gain at the level they were prior to this blockbuster and shock announcement. The FA themselves must be called into question to determine just how far they went to lobby against the deduction of funds by the government, because if they were serious about this entire event, then they would have been more forthcoming with their reservations rather than just give out a paltry non-statement like they have done already. UEFA as well needs to come into the sight of the firing line, because they too so far have kept mum on the situation as well, which really just stinks of negligence and lack of care towards the women. Women's football undoubtedly finds itself once again at another crossroads that has the potential to make or break it in the future, because the overall outcome from this situation will inform the attitude that future hosts will have across not only Europe, but potentially other countries on other continents as well. Switzerland as a whole will take a massive hit from this issue because they will be ill prepared to handle the influx of foreigners. Women's football in Switzerland will also suffer because if the government refuses to provide support for a continental tournament, then what is honestly stopping them from reducing funding that supports grassroots and amateur football within the women's game? And of course, women's football in general will suffer because despite the strides that have been made over the years in improving the competitiveness, the quality of football, the infrastructures that develop, support, and improve players, this move by the Swiss federal government sends out a strongly negative message about women's football in general, which goes against all the progress that has been made to date. As of now, there remains a threadbare silver lining in that the federal parliament of Switzerland holds the final say of whether the government can or cannot officially tender its 4 million budget to help finance the Women's Euros. And all we can do now is just hope that common sense prevails, that the government are obliged to fulfill their initial investment of 15 million and even be made to pay more if need be. Because honestly speaking, why go through all the hassle of lobbying to gain the rights to host such a big tournament if you're only going to undercut it with just over a year and a few months to go before it's meant to kick off? As always, I am interested to hear what you think about all of this, so please leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I've linked some interesting articles around this issue in the description below, so if you are interested in knowing more than what I've already said in this video, then feel free to click on them and read on. Like, share, and subscribe if you liked and enjoyed this video, and let's all just hope for the best outcome regarding this issue, and that we don't have to talk about anything similar to this ever again in future, especially concerning women's football. Goodbye for now.